Few men have shaped a nation with concrete curves and ideas. Oscar Niemeyer was not just an architect. He was a political artist, a committed communist in the midst of the Cold War, a creator of monuments for the state, and declared enemy of the Brazilian military dictatorship. This is the story of how architecture became ideology, how Brasília was born as a utopia, and how one man faced generals, exile, and censorship without ever abandoning his convictions. Can architecture truly be neutral? Let's find out. Oscar Ribeiro de Almeida Niemeyer Soares Filho was born in Rio de Janeiro in 1907. He grew up surrounded by the sinuous lines of mountains, the gentle curves of beaches, the organic forms of nature, shapes that would become his signature, his architectural language. From an early age, Niemeyer instinctively rejected the rigid rationalism taking hold in European modernism. For him, the straight line was an invention of man, a tool of machines. The curve, however, belonged to life, to the universe itself. This philosophy wasn't just about aesthetics, it was a deeply personal worldview, but his work would not remain merely personal, would soon become profoundly political. As the world fractured in the 1930s and 40s, splitting between the competing ideologies of capitalism and socialism, Niemeyer made a definitive choice. He joined the Brazilian Communist Party, a decision that would define the rest of his life and career. He never hid his admiration for the socialist ideal, believing firmly that architecture should serve the people, not profit, not elites, and certainly not the market. In the heart of the Cold War, defending communism in a Western-aligned nation like Brazil was more than a political stance. It was a provocative act of confrontation, a challenge to the established order. His buildings would become his manifestos, each curve a testament to his belief in a more egalitarian world. And then came Brasília. It wasn't just a new city. It was an audacious ideological experiment, conceived in the vast, empty heart of Brazil. Far from the coastal oligarchies and colonial power structures, Brasília symbolized a radical new beginning. The visionary president Juscelino Kubitschek wanted to catapult Brazil 50 years forward in 5. But for his chief architects, Oscar Niemeyer and urban planner Lúcio Costa, the goal was even grander: societal transformation. They designed open palaces without walls, monumental plazas for the masses, and government buildings raised on slender pillars, seemingly floating above the ground. Everything was meant to convey equality, transparency, and the power of the collective. Brasília was a modernist utopia, a dream of a classless society built in reinforced concrete. But as Brasília rose from the red earth of the plateau, the world was descending into a state of paranoia. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in a tense struggle for hearts, minds, and territories. The Cold War's Red Scare cast a long shadow over Latin America, and in Brazil, communism came to be seen as an existential threat. And there, at the center of it all, was Oscar Niemeyer, the country's most celebrated architect. A man shaping the very image of the nation, and a declared unrepentant communist. His art, once praised, was now watched. His architecture, once a symbol of progress, became suspect. The utopia he was building was now seen by some as a Trojan horse. In 1964, the dream was shattered. Tanks rolled through the streets of Rio de Janeiro, and a military coup toppled the democratically elected government. The Brazilian military dictatorship imposed a reign of censorship, persecution, and brutal repression. The Communist Party was hunted, its members arrested, tortured, or forced into hiding. Intellectuals, artists, and architects who had once been the nation's pride became targets of the state. Niemeyer, the creator of Brasília's iconic buildings, suddenly found his world turned upside down. He lost government contracts, was repeatedly interrogated by the military police, and had his Rio office raided and vandalized. In the very country whose capital he had designed, there was no longer space for his ideas. His name became synonymous with subversion. Forced into exile, Niemeyer left for Europe in 1967, but this was not an end. It was a new beginning. In France, Algeria, and Italy, he found a new canvas for his revolutionary ideas. Designing buildings for socialist governments and left-wing organizations, he was welcomed by fellow artists and intellectuals, and he received public support from communist leaders, including Fidel Castro. While Brazil attempted to silence him, the world celebrated his genius. His architecture, free from the constraints of his homeland, became even more political, even more symbolic. His time in exile sharpened his convictions, and his buildings from this era are powerful statements of solidarity and resistance. Throughout his career, Niemeyer designed palaces for presidents, headquarters for governments, and monuments for the state. This led to frequent accusations of contradiction. How could a communist build for power? How could a man of the people create opulent structures for the ruling class? But for Niemeyer, the building itself was not the power, was the message. He believed his architecture would outlive the regimes that commissioned it, standing as a timeless testament to beauty, human ingenuity, and the socialist ideals he held dear. He saw his work as a form of permanent protest, an aesthetic that could inspire future generations long after the politicians were gone. With the end of the dictatorship in the mid-1980s, Niemeyer finally returned to Brazil. He was an old man, but his spirit was unshaken, his beliefs as firm as the concrete he molded. He never renounced communism. He never apologized for his political convictions. Till his death at the age of 104, he remained a staunch critic of capitalism and inequality. His work remains an open question, a challenge to us all. Can art truly change society? Brasília is still there, standing on the plateau. Monumental, beautiful, controversial. A utopia frozen in time. A testament to a dream that was both magnificent and flawed. Oscar Niemeyer believed the world could be more just, more beautiful, more human. Perhaps he was a naive idealist. Perhaps he was a visionary ahead of his time. But one thing is undeniable. His convictions were as strong and enduring as his architecture. He was the man of curves, and his spirit, like his signature lines, never bent to pressure. If this documentary helped you see the intersection of history, politics, and architecture that shaped modern Brazil, please like this video, share it with others, and subscribe for more deep dives into the stories that define our world. Thanks for watching.